everyone, Christina here with a special new moon reading for Twin Flames, Divine Love Partners, and Sacred Soulmates. If you'd like a personal and private reading with me, or if you'd like to order any of the decks that you see me using, I will leave that information down below. And I have to tell you, this reading is going to be a little bit nutty. This energy has been with me all day, and it's, I wasn't planning to do a new moon reading, but then I just got called to pull some cards this morning, and as the messages just kept coming in and coming in, it just became very clear that this reading is necessary to kind of tie the other two weekly readings for this week together, and go a little bit more in depth into what we're supposed to be doing as we are in retreat. Okay, so also I'm wearing a coat because it's really cold in here. That stinking radiator isn't working. so I'm part of this like weird giddy energy is also because I'm like a little bit shivering. So I'm gonna put that out there so that you don't think I'm like nuts. Like, why is she wearing a trench coat? So anyway, so to start, like I said, this new moon energy is actually about, the void moon going into the void, going into the darkness. And I had planned, the first cards that wanted to be used for this reading were the Magdalene Oracle cards. Or it was the first deck that I knew I was going to use. And then when I pulled them, I thought that they were going to be at the end, but they decided that they wanted to come up front first. And as the rest of the messages unfolded over the course of the day, it became so clear to me why they needed to move up front. So I'm going to start with the biggest kahuna card if you're on a twin flame journey, and it is the Eternal Embrace card. And is this not the flamiest twin flame card there is that you've seen? So there it is. There's the flames. There's the two of them. And this card is telling you to put it to rest. Put the chasing, the wondering, the fear, the, oh my goodness, the worry about whether or not that person is your twin. Put it to rest. That is energy that needs to be used on something else that is more productive. And the reason you need to do, and actually what the rest of this reading is about is where all that energy needs to be going. What you need to remember is that if you are in fact on a twin flame path with this particular partner who's on your mind, then you don't have to do anything about it. That's a constant connection. Okay? If they're not, then they need to vibrate away from you anyway, and so that is a welcome development as well. So either way, it's win-win. But more than anything, when you think about what the moon does, when we are in a new moon stage, it's also called the dark moon or a void moon. Actually, we'll just leave that. Okay, so but it's the time when the moon is not reflecting the sun. And so this is about not being in this constant reflection relationship with your twin. This is also not even about having your own light. This is about going into your own shadow and into your own void space, which is actually your heart and soul space. Okay, so this card is telling, the reason this wanted to be up front is because it's telling you, like, yeah, it's there. Don't worry about it. Spend your energy somewhere else. Okay? You cannot, neither of you can outrun the connection. And if there's no connection, then it needs to fizzle anyway. Okay? And so you need to put that aside so that you have room to do this work. And this is about making a decision, a commitment to developing your own heart and soul. Okay, it is, if you look at this decision card, what I really like about it, so we have the full moon even though we're in the new moon, but what I really like is this little image here, and it could be a droplet. When I first looked at it, I thought it was a droplet falling into some water, and you'll see some of the cards later on in the reading kind of resonate with that. But this is also about as one of these divine partners, lighting your own little fire to reflect, just kind of return the light back to the moon. Like this, you can't see the rest of, like there's not people in this image, but it is still about going into your dark space and lighting your own flame, lighting the flame of your own heart and soul, and not being obsessed with this flame, okay? Because that's always there, all right? So being able to put those, you know, to kind of say, all right, this is here, you can set that on the shelf and not worry about it, kind of the set it and forget it version of things. Now you have some space to go into the void. It's safe to go into the void. You don't have to be maintaining over here. And in that vein, right now I'm in my own kind of personal void, and let's see if I can. So a book I'm reading is called Zero. Ooh, yeah, you're not going to be able to see that. Okay, in any event, it's called Zero, the Biography of a Dangerous Idea by Charles Seife. And there's a little passage in here that I think really sums up what it is that we're doing. You know, if our twin flame situation is our infinite love, when we reach there, when we're sort of on this path toward infinite love, part of the way that we connect to it, the way we connect to divine love, is to go within and give it to ourselves first, like connect with ourselves first. And to do that is to go into the zero space. And so here we go. Zero is powerful because it is infinity's twin. They are equal and opposite, yin and yang. They are equally paradoxical and troubling. The biggest questions in science and religion are about nothingness and eternity, the void and the infinite, zero and infinity. The clashes over zero were the battles that shook the foundations of philosophy, of science, of mathematics, and of religion. Underneath every revolution lay a zero and an infinity. And oh my gosh, could that be more on point about what it is we're doing? This space that we're in right now with this new moon is about, if you're trying to get to infinite love, then you have to develop zero. You have to develop your own void, your own 0 point. So that is what this energy is really about. And you know, when we think about, if you're on one of these twin flame journeys, if you are on your way toward a divine love, part of the purpose for you two to come together is because you're supposed to be doing service to the planet, for the universe, whatever, you know, whichever one of those hierarchical frameworks makes the most sense to you. And, you know, that last bit about revolution, if we are going to bring, underneath every revolution lay a zero and an infinity. If we are going to bring about some kind of change for our world, if, you know, to heal all of this stuff that we've been doing for so long, then we have to do this work. And what's interesting is, you know, it's like infinity, of the two of them, infinity gets all the billing, it gets top billing, and in a lot of ways, you know, the mask, if we want to think about zero and infinity as being feminine and masculine, like the masculine has been getting kind of more all the limelight for a long time, and now we are in this stage of the divine feminine rising. And so the next set of cards I drew, I'm actually not going to talk that much about the cards themselves. I want to talk more about the deck. It's the deck proper, because it ends up being a little bit more enlightening about what you're supposed to be using this energy for. And the cards themselves are very straightforward. And so we've got Be You, and then Stand Still, which is the new moon, and You Are Exactly Where You Need to Be. And these three cards together just really say, like, look, you don't have to keep running. There's no reason to keep running and racing and chasing and doing all of that stuff. This is, I mean, this one I even want to put like a little comma in here and make it say, be you. Like, hey, you, just be for a second. Slow down, be where you are, be still, go into the stillness of the new moon, of the darkness, and figure out what it means to be who you are. Okay? The next, oh, right, so like I said, those were really straightforward, but the thing that's actually more, I think, more enlightening, more insightful to what this time is about is actually what the name of the deck is. So this is the Alchemist Oracle Connected and Free by Inner Hue, and she's an artist in Australia, I believe. And so there's two things going on here. So first is The Alchemist. If you've not read that book, you absolutely must, because if you want to talk about finding a twin flame, that is a twin flame story like crazy. Okay. But also, like, this time is about kind of getting all of your ingredients together. And as you are in that void, there will be like an alchemizing process that happens. But the other thing that I think is the most important about this is the connected and free part of the title. You know, so many times when people talk about these twin flame and divine love partnerships, it's always about strife and codependency and how difficult these things are. And, you know, everybody's getting triggered and then everybody has to retreat and heal. And that's the path toward, you know, if you are on this, then that's sort of the path. But ultimately, when you are fully kind of in its finest expression, it's about being connected and free, being connected to each other. You cannot escape the connection, but being whole as individuals, being complete individuals. You know, the origination story of Twin Flames has this narrative about one soul being split between two people, and there's an inherent incompleteness there. If that's the narrative that you're going to like get heavily invested in. And so this is why there's so much like, oh gosh, I'm so empty, I'm so half full or half empty, or, you know, whatever it is. But really, when we are there, when we're in it, it's about being individually free while also still having a connection to that person. And if you found my video, I'm assuming you probably have a little bit more knowledge about, or, you know, a little bit more exposure to other twin flame readers, and they've all talked about that it's not really about the 3D part of it, because you're already connected at the soul level. You're already connected in the spiritual realm, the 5D, and so the connection never goes away. You can't escape that. But what people start to conflate and confuse is that, but I want to be in a relationship with my platinum level soulmate. And it's like, that's not really what this is about. If you're on this journey, it's because you've got service, and your twin, your counterpart, is there to, at the very least, catalyze you down that, like, onto that path. Whether they join you, you know, at some other point that the two of you do the work together is in some ways beside the point. But I also subscribe to the idea that we're not meant to be alone unless we want to be. If you want to be in a partnership that is, you know, that feeds and nourishes your soul and your spirit, then you can be, as long as you have nourished your spirit first, and then you will have a partner who treats you the same way that you are teaching them to treat you. How's that? To put that entire thing into a tiny nugget shell. Okay, and actually, because I can see it in my little screen, right here, so this piece of artwork back here is by a very good friend of mine, and it's called The Magic of Corvus. And there are two bands on there that are written in Nepali, and it totally goes with this. One of the bands says unconditional love, and the other band says constant connection. And that is totally what this is. what the title of these cards are. So you can see how it ended up being, I mean, my guides are really playing a lot of games with me today. So it's really, you know, these cards are just re-emphasizing, yeah, go within, be still, you're where you need to be, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, figuring this one out. And I love that this is a fish and it's kind of in the waters, going into the depths. And that ends up being important for the next set of cards. This is really fascinating. So, you know, I knew that I was going to use the Magdalene deck because of that sacred feminine energy and the sacred feminine energy of the moon in general, but especially like this new moon and the void really felt like, you know, going into the womb, all right? And so the next two sets of cards, one of the decks is interesting because I've not used it in about 6 months. There was one card in it that just kept haunting me, and until I finally was like, all right, I'm done with this. Let me do something else. And but it wanted to be used today, and it is Oblique Strategies. You can see that by Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt, and this is really funny. And then the other deck that I pulled from is called Soulcards. There's Soulcards 1 and 2, and I love this deck because it is so good for doing soul level readings. If you get a reading with me, I'm probably more than likely going to be pulling from this deck. And the reason I like this one so much is that there are no words and there's no guidebook. Okay, it is all intuition. And what's funny about the Brian Eno cards is that it's only words and no images. And so I just think this is such a great metaphor, kind of the you know, in our language awareness, how that occupies one part of our mind, and it's like our cognitive processes, where the soul cards really go to that intuition. You have no choice but to just totally feel. Okay. The other reason this was interesting is because of what the soul card is. And so if you can see this, so there's this figure here, and then there's this other figure with wings, and it's kind of like a guardian angel to some extent. And this item here reads to me as a guitar. And what I really got from this was about making music. And when I pulled the card this morning, I thought, oh, I guess the advice is to maybe pay attention to music and songs, and you'll be getting messages. And, you know, and then I was getting kind of a no on that, and I went, all right, well, I'll sit with it a little bit longer. And then I got a book in the mail, and I also, at the same time, got this post in my Facebook feed by Corinne Bailey Ray. And if you don't know her work, you must. This quote that she posted is so exactly the kind of like what her latest album is about, for sure, but also it's so soul nourishing if you're kind of doing this internal work. So she says, music is a way of finding out how much I'm actually feeling. It makes me be conscious of my pain, aware of my joy, gives me a boldness that I don't find any other way. Okay, and that was the big aha. I went, oh, the music is there not because you're going to get some message like, oh, the song lyric says he loves you, yeah, or something. But this is about going within. It's the retreat. Find, if it's music for you, great. If it's not music, if it's something else, if it's painting, if it's, I don't know, just like being in the bathtub, I mean, and not doing anything else, then great, do that. Go into the space where you get to be in touch with all of your feelings, all of your emotions. It's the space of the standstill. Like, go be still, because this is where we're going to start creating. The void it's in many ways, it's like the uterus, the womb. And the other thing that made this card make a lot of sense, there was that, and then I realized, oh, it's also, not an accident that my Brian Eno cards wanted to get used today, because if you weren't familiar with Brian Eno, he was a collaborator with David Bowie, most famously for the his Berlin trilogy. And when David Bowie went to Berlin to go work on these albums, and really to do, basically he was detoxing, okay? It was his own personal rehab. He was all strung out on coke and all this stuff, and had enough close calls with it that he said, all right, I gotta go do something else. I gotta make some change. He was going broke, and Berlin was a cheap place to live, so he could do that, and nobody really cared about him, like they didn't know who he was. So he went there and made some of his most amazing work. And so it's like, using these Brian Eno cards is also in a lot of ways, like, just sort of the deck itself is reinforcing this message about, that retreat, the retreat to go make music. This is about creation, okay? What we're doing in this space is, it's not really, you might have a creative writing project or painting or music, whatever it is for you. You might have those things, and that's great. But what you're really being called to do is go into that space, and it's like, and you can see it kind of makes like a nice circle, like a nice zero around them. But go into that space because you're creating yourself. You are creating your heartful and soulful way of being in the world. Okay, so let's look at what these Eno cards, well, I keep calling them Eno cards because that's kind of the magical way they came to me, but they're oblique strategies. All right, so these cards, again, and I don't know why I'm going to show you, because I love it, except to show you that how bare bones and stripped down they are, because that's the space we're going into. So the first card that came out was water. And, as I mentioned before, this is about going into the depths, and going into the depths of your own spirit and psyche to figure out what's there for you. Who are you in all of this? And, and in some ways, when we're stripping things away, and even, David Bowie going to Berlin to detox, take an Epsom salt bath. It really can be kind of literal that way. Cry your tears. If you follow me on Instagram, the card of the day, on the day that I'm recording this, was the red onion, which is on one hand kind of about root chakra work, but it's also, onions are about the magic of tears and the cleansing power of salt water. So go take your bath, cry your tears, and allow that water to erode kind of the crustiness of what you've been carrying around for so long. And you know what? And allow it to erode the crustiness of this obsessive way of thinking, okay? And when I say, if you're obsessed on, is this my twin? Okay. All right, the next card, because, so the first part is to sort of cleanse away, right? So that you can take a look, all right? So if you're in the bath, this is also about kind of confronting your own nakedness. This really is kind of pulling together the other readings for the week, but giving us a little bit more insight. So the second card is emphasize the flaws. And this is not for us to, look at all the things that are wrong with us and get down on ourselves. That's not what this is about. This is about taking a retrospective view of, your path up to this moment, up to this point. 2016 is a 9-year. It's about endings. And, we're at November now, and we are coming to the end of this ending year. And, so when you look at these flaws, when you let your eyes get drawn to the flaws, it's not, like I said, it's not to get down on yourself, but instead it's about looking at the flaws and seeing, why is that out of alignment? Why is that not why does that not work with me? Why aren't the keys all fitting together? Why is it all janky? So when you emphasize the flaws, it's like, look at what's your framework and what's the framework of the thing that doesn't fit, and figure out what's at the root of that not fitting, so that you can replace it or tweak it, or, just kind of file off the sharp, harsh edges, but figure out, like, why doesn't this fit? And then decide whether it's something that can fit, something that shouldn't fit, or should just be discarded. Okay, so that's what emphasizing the flaws is about. And then the last card is Ask Your Body. And this is, again, another card about, like, leaving. It's actually, like, kind of leaving these words behind, leaving that mental cognition part behind, and just going into the heart and soul. Ask your body. Don't ask your mind. Ask your body, how does this feel? Does this feel right? Am I in a flow here? Am I in a groove? And if you're not, then you can, like I said, you can dismantle that and remantle something else. Oh my gosh, I'm such a dork. Okay. But, taken together, these cards, the water, there's so much water. If you watched I want to say it was probably the soul lesson reading for the week, there was so much water involved in that. And, and then we just, as if, we weren't paying close enough attention, we get water, just straight, like, water. Pay attention to water. This is the emotions. This is the depths, the emotions and the depths. And like I said, I had received a book in the mail today at the same time that I got the Corinne Bailey Ray post. And so I think it's pertinent here too. So I'm going to go ahead and read this as well. And I think it actually, I think it also, brings the theme of this new moon together. So it's called, this is from a book called Her Strange Angels by Sarah La Rosa. And I'm so excited about this book. Like, I just kind of lost myself for a second just being in the cover of it. And it feels fantastic too. I love matte finishes. Okay, anyway. This poem is called The Nothing. Dark water, muddy water, groundwater. Creativity is like this, swirling and circling and thick. There is no easy, clear flow of sparkling oceans and singing rivers. My muse comes to me in the mud, that sacred mixture, dirt and dark water, that heals blind eyes and draws toxins from the skin and deeper organs. The smell is pungent. This is the artery of the earth. This is the tar-colored pitch that feeds the tributaries, flowing toward La Loba who gathers, to Kali who destroys, to the truths I'd rather avoid, in sight of myself, about myself, in spite of myself. One has no choice but to face the great nothing if one is to find the underneath river. It is a gift, the nothing. It empties us utterly of falsity and the hollow stubbornness that claims to be the abiding strength of spirit, but drains us of genuine courage instead. And we must be emptied if we are to be fed of the living water of spirit. And so what is one to do? What is the solution, the course of action while stranded in the desert? Do you sit to conserve your strength, praying that you live through this painful dehydration of the soul? No. Continue on. Feel the burning sand between your toes. Feel yourself melting and merging with the great nothing. Sink below dunes and heat. There you will find a cool, dark place that smells of ancient rains collected on the ground beneath your blistered feet. The waters rise. I mean, is that not exactly what all of these cards have been pointing to. It's about going into that blank space, that dark space, that creation, that you're creating yourself and creating your spirit and not being fooled. I love this part about, that stubbornness that claims to be the strength of spirit, but it's like, no, that's our clinging, that's our grasping, that's our attachment, when really we need to, what requires so much more courage of us is to let it go and be in the void, because there's no framework, we're just on our own there. The other thing I wanted to point out, or to address, is this contrast of this kind of standstill and the standstill that's talked about in the poem. So there's this passage that asks, do you sit to conserve your strength, praying that you live through this painful dehydration of the soul? And stillness is deliberate. This is about being not anxious, being at peace in the mind. And the kind of stillness here, it talked about here, that's about complacency. Okay, do we sit down and go, gosh, we have to conserve our energy, we should just sit here and hope that water arrives? What? So no, it's about having the bravery, the courage to continue moving forward, and being calm and serene about that, like not running, the desert, it's like, okay, and you're going to have blistered feet, and it's going to be, some parts of it are going to be painful, but you got to keep moving, and, and you have to be in stillness in your, what is the word I want here? But just like in your being, having, kind of the world be falling down around you and going, okay, this is happening. I can't do anything about that, but I can keep moving. I can keep myself going. If it's funny, right now I'm also being called to watch a movie, that Tom Hanks movie, Castaway, and he does this whole monologue at the end. Spoiler alert. I mean, this movie's, I think, like 16 years old, so if you haven't seen it by now, that's your own fault. No, but really, you do, if you want to talk about, like, being in the void, like, that is totally a movie that will kind of feed that spirit for you. But it's, but he talks about, I had to keep going, I had to keep moving, and I had to get off that island, okay? So, I mean, that's not much of a spoiler because the movie's not really about that, okay? So, but it's like, yes, that's what this is. When you are, you have to keep going, all right? And do so with the courage of not knowing about whether what's going to happen next, or, making yourself fit into something. It's just like, oh, I know that I don't fit into rules. I don't fit this. And so I need to create myself so that I can create something else out externally in the world that makes it a little bit easier for people to kind of do their own thing, and, not these oppressive kinds of, I'm speaking in some kind of really silly generalities, but not those, the rules that are oppressive, the rules that make people like not think for themselves, and then the same kinds of rules that also result in just like hard oppression, okay, and violence. So, we start at the micro level, and then it has that rippling effect, and that's kind of how, cultural change kind of moves. Without, I don't actually want to start down that road. I'm already past 30 minutes. So, yeah, this is about, go into your void space and figure out what this means. Figure out what this is for you. Reconnect and commit to that. What is, when you have that infinite love inside you for yourself, then you can connect with that infinite love with everything around you, and it won't matter. Okay? And it won't matter if it's this person, because you have to give it a rest. You have to give this frantic wondering a rest, because there's far more important work that needs to be done. Okay? Whew, wow, that was a lot, and that took my guides all day to give to me. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and wow, I cannot wait to hear about kind of how these things are developing. I will say, you know, as it came together, I could see how it was bridging kind of the little bit of a gap between the weekly energy reading and the soul lesson, but also, you know, I posted those videos before. You know, I watch a couple of other readers, and the messages were resonating. I went, oh my gosh, that's the same. I was getting that. I was like right on that with in my reading too. So the energies really are kind of picking up around us, and so yeah, this new moon reading was really about like going in more depth about, okay, so I retreat, then what? Well, then what? Okay, so thank you, you guys. Yeah, this is great. I'm actually really excited, and yeah, let me know how it goes. Okay, take care. I'll see you next week.